When you are building your teams, what C skills do you put on your team members to get the maximum effect possible? That's what we're talking about today. Greetings and salutations, welcome back, killers. As you know, it is important to get every ounce of power you can, because sometimes one damage point is all that's different between having a winning arena run or getting that Grand Hero battle done compared to having to start over yet again. So I am glad that you are here so that we can talk about how to best maximize the C skills you're putting on your teammates so that we can actually develop a winning team that's going to synergize well. But first, real quick, I need to tell you how I look at C slots, because basically, there's three different categories of skills in my opinion. And the first one is the one that simply helps others. These are your hones and your fortifies, your wards and your goads. They're things like drive, spur, that's the kind of category it is. It also includes things like the guidance set of skills, pulses, rushes, things like that. Those skills are all going to be helping everybody else. They don't benefit you. The next category of skill to take a look at are things that really are meant to sort of help yourself, and they still help the team, but they're meant to help yourself. And as of recording, this category that is strictly this is pretty small. You're talking about armor march, and you're talking about the even and odd wave skills. Those ones boost yourself in some way, but you need to be next to somebody else in order for that effect to work. You give that other person the exact same benefit, but you know what? You're getting it too, which is quite fabulous in my book. The last category of things are things that sort of like can go either way. They can either help the party because you're too far away from the action, or they can help you because you're depending upon that particular buff or debuff. These are things like ploys that you can just shoot all the way down the field and without a care. These are things like the threaten series of skills, where they trigger, and it might trigger on an enemy phase where you're expecting to get the benefit, or maybe they just trigger so that you can give somebody else a good shot at killing that particular target. Those sort of skills are things that, like I said, can sort of like go back and forth, and they might benefit you, they might not benefit you. It sort of depends on how the board is set up, and so they're a little bit sticky, but it's good to know that they live in between the fold. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, whenever I evaluate what C skill to give somebody, I have three questions I ask myself. The first one is, does this particular hero that I'm talking about need a buff? That is important, because if that hero needs a buff, I need to ensure, first of all, that the other teammates are going to actually have that buff for him. And that means that frees up this hero, potentially frees up this hero anyway, to be able to use something that is either self-serving or is a maybe. You're already going to guarantee that somebody else on your team is providing him the buff he needs. That person can also buff other people, theoretically, so you have the potential to free this up. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go with something like a hone or a goad or something like that on this particular unit, but it frees you up, it gives you other options. The next question I ask is, will some sort of emblem skill be good here? What I'm talking about is like goad and ward and fortify and hone, like horses and all that kind of stuff. So if you have a flying unit, an armor unit, dragons in some cases, you know, now that they're getting a lot more buff support, horses, if something like that, if they're on that team, then maybe looking at something such as armor march might be a good idea. Looking at something like a ward armor might be a good idea, or a goad cavalry if you end up having the luxury of having an extra one of those. Something like that might be useful for your team so that you can get the maximum benefit out of other people's abilities and powers. The last question that I ask myself, I can't remember it. The last question that I ask myself is this person somebody who's going to be on the front line or the back line? Is this somebody who is meant to take a beating or can potentially take a hit? Or is this somebody you want to keep in reserve to either block a very specific threat or to be able to go in there and eliminate a very specific threat? So with that in mind, I go into looking at these units, trying to figure out where they best fit in this spectrum, and we're going to go over a couple right now. So here's an easy one. Let's take a look at Nino. She is a Gron Blade user. She wants a buff. That's number one. Number two, does she have any emblem skills? Technically, there's some things you can consider infantry emblem, but I don't look at that. Like infantry pulse, infantry rush. It's good to know that she will benefit from those, but I don't consider that an emblem skill. So the answer here is no. The third one is she a frontline or a backline? She's not meant to tank. She's meant to go up there and nuke. So I consider her backline. She's going to be up there on the front, but the designation here is that is she going to be scrapping it with the best of them, or is she going to be meant to be targeted and do a precise strike? And that's the category that she falls in. So she needs buffs, she's not an emblem buff person, and she's backline. So what kind of buffs are good on her? Well, you'd have to technically look at her resistance and things like that to see if you could go ahead and put something like a ploy on her. Since she's not going to be frontline, things like threatens are not going to be a good match for her either. You can go ahead and definitely give her something that is self-serving, something along the lines of, you know, odd attack wave is going to be a really good one to give her. And then, of course, beyond that, something, since she's not going to be like always up at the front, something like a drive might actually be really good for her. In mixed emblem teams, a tactic skill is also good because of the radius that it covers. Let's go ahead and take a look at Lucas. Here's another good example. Does he need a buff? No, he doesn't need a buff. He would like buffs, but he does not need it. He can effectively tank a large category of things all by himself, especially with a self-contained build. That is a little note here that maybe your build is going to have a different set of answers for mine for what I am demonstrating here, but these are sort of easy universal ones, so I'm hoping that they stick well enough. He does not need a buff in order to do his job. Will emblem buff work on him? No. As I already explained before, I don't consider infantry to be an emblem-style team, and most other people don't. Thirdly, is he going to be frontline? Well, yeah, he's going to get the crap beat out of him, and then hopefully bonfire Ignis in somebody's face. You want him up there. Yes, he's a frontline hero. So what kind of things are good to give him? Well, if you need to have a buff on somebody else up in the front line, a simple hone is really wonderful in this case, or even a spur, depending upon some team structure you may have, because that way he's going to provide it to whoever else is up front as well. Outside of that, you can definitely try to see if he could do something, like I said, anything that's self-serving is sometimes okay. He has a terrible resistance, but he could make use out of threatened skills. So this is a kind of sort of a place where you would either put buffs on him so that he can support the other teammates, or you can go ahead and just do something like a threaten or the smoke series so that whenever he's engaging and up on the front, he's laying down that debuff in a very wide range of things, and so that's where it kind of sort of comes into play there. Lastly, since he's available in the starter pack, let's go ahead and take a look at Black Knight, okay? So, does he need a buff to do his job? Once again, he really likes it, but you know what? Most of the best builds out there for him make him very self-sufficient in using Black Luna. He does not need a buff, but he would definitely like one. So you know what? Let's go ahead and put that on the edge, because speed is a weird spot for him, and any armor unit loves to have armor. So you know what? Let's go ahead and have that be Hazy. This is a fantastic choice, so you can see what kind of options we have, by the way. Emblem buffs? Yeah, armor emblem. I just started to mention it. I mean, he would love to have a ward armor placed down on him, fortify armor, goad armor. I mean, like, any of those buffs he would absolutely enjoy. Lastly, is he going to be on the front line? Yeah, he's going to be on the front line. So what can you give him? Well, he would probably like to have a buff. So something like giving him Armor March is a good idea, because then it frees up everybody else on the team to be able to actually provide him the buff. He needs the buff, so unless you're going to rely on odd or even wave abilities for your sole source of buffs, that means he doesn't necessarily need to carry a buff himself. He needs to make sure other people have the buff. So if he's carrying Armor March, he's allowing his teammates to cover that up, and he's still providing a great benefit to the rest of the team. So that's actually a really big recommendation there. Outside of that, if you don't have anything, he's going to be up front. He's going to want other people next to him. Maybe after using his Black Luna, if you have a build that's takes a hit, he's going to be a little bit weak. So maybe you can have somebody Wings of Mercy ended there, like a flying Hectorcopter or something like that, which means a ward or goad is going to be perfect on him, because he's going to provide that benefit in the middle of combat right whenever somebody is there. And you could look at things like threaten and stuff like that, but to be honest with you, adding 4 to 2 different stats is a lot better. Yeah, like immediately is a lot better than potentially subtracting 5 from 1 stat to everybody. And well, his resistance isn't worth talking about, so we'll just go ahead and skip that part right there. As I started to hint, you could easily come up with other skill synergies that work well with the team. First of all, if you have mixed emblem teams, I didn't even talk about the tactics series of teams. I didn't talk much about pulse and rush series of skills. In addition to that, I did give an honorable mention to Wings of Mercy coming into somebody who's weak. Of course, then you can put a C skill on there meant to help out in a pinch. After that unit has, like Lucas, has already taken a beating, so then you could go ahead and do something like Wings of Mercy and go elsewhere. There's a lot to talk about here. I can have videos until the cows come home on it, and I really want to be able to provide that. So let me know down in the comments what kind of things are interesting you, what kind of questions do you still have at this point after talking about how to make good team synergy concerning the C passive slot. This all assumes that you haven't merged or promoted everybody that you're going to use as fodder. If you want to see why you might want to 4-star merge somebody or promote them to 5-star, click on the video that I got for you right here. Otherwise, my name is Deltran. Thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate all of you. And until next time, take it easy.